1919, North Carolina Appalachia. The Appalachian Moonshiner's Guide forbade traveling the ridge. During silent nights, I left a full load of whiskey sitting on the side of a mountain once, and I never went back for it. $200 of corn liquor, near enough, which in those days was more money than most men in our part of the county saw in a year of honest work. I unhitched my mule, I took the lantern, and I walked off down the grade and left every jar of it sitting in the wagon bed for whoever wanted it. Far as I know, it sat there till the wood rotted out from under it. I want to tell you why I did that. I've had a long time to think on it, and I still can't say I understand it, not all the way down. But I can tell you what happened, and I can tell you what I was told, and you can do with it what you want. This was 1919. I was running liquor out of the brushy mountains, down toward the Yadkin, the same as my daddy had, and a fair number of men I knew. North Carolina had gone dry by vote back in 1908, so it wasn't a new trade by then. It was just a trade. The whole country was about to go dry on top of us that winter, the federal law, but up where we were that didn't change much. It was already against the law. It had been against the law for 10 years. The only thing that changed was the price went up, and when the price goes up, more men are willing to walk a dark ridge to move the goods. I was 23 years old. I'd been doing it about 4 years by then, since I was old enough to be trusted with a team, and I thought I knew the work. That's the part that matters before I go on. I thought I knew it. I was not a green boy. I had run those mountains at night in every kind of weather there is, rain and ice and fog so thick you couldn't see the mule's ears in front of you. And I had never been hurt and never been caught, and I had started to think that was on account of me being good at it. The man who taught me was named Burl Hicks. He was old when I knew him, or he seemed old to me, which at 23 is not the same thing. He'd have been maybe 60. He had been running liquor since before I was thought of, and the routes I used were his routes, paths his own people had used before him, going back further than anybody could say. That's how it worked. You didn't make a new road through those mountains. The roads were already there, mule paths and old logging cuts and game trails that men had been widening a boot's width at a time for 100 years. You inherited them, and along with the road you inherited the rules that went with it. Burl gave me the rules a few at a time, the way you'd give a boy more rope as he got steadier. Don't run the same night 2 weeks running. Don't cross the roaring river at the low ford after a hard rain. Take the high one even though it's longer. Don't trust a man who's friendly to you on the road, because an honest runner keeps to himself. Practical things. Things that kept you out of jail or kept you from drowning a mule. I learned them and I followed them, and I never thought twice about one of them. But there was one rule Burl gave me different from the rest. I remember it plain because of how he gave it. We were sitting on his porch. This would have been my first season, and he'd been talking easy the whole evening, this rule and that, and then he stopped talking for a minute, just stopped. And when he started again, his voice had changed. It had gone flat. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking off at the tree line. He said, "If the woods ever go quiet on you while you're on the ridge, quiet all the way, the bugs and the frogs and the birds and the wind, all of it, and it stays that way longer than about a minute, you leave the load. You don't think about it. You don't wait to see. You unhitch, and you get off that mountain, and you leave the whiskey where it sits." I asked him why. Naturally, I asked him why. A young man's going to ask, and he didn't answer me. He sat there a while, and then he said, "You'll know it if it happens, and if it happens, you won't need me to have told you why." Then he got up and went in the house, and that was the end of the porch sitting for that night. I want to be honest about how I took that. I didn't take it serious. I thought Burl was a fine man and a careful one, but I also knew he was old, and I knew old men who'd spent their lives alone in the dark on those mountains got peculiar. Everybody knew that. There was a runner 2 coves over who wouldn't carry anything red. Wouldn't have a red thing on him or on the wagon. Couldn't tell you why. And there was an old woman down on the river who you weren't supposed to let see your load, not because she'd tell. She'd never told anybody anything, but just because. Mountain people had 100 rules like that. Little superstitions worn smooth by being handed down. And you nodded at them and you didn't argue, and you mostly didn't follow them, and no harm came of it. So that's the box I put Burrow's rule in. The Quiet Woods rule. I put it in with the red things and the old woman, and I figured it was the one peculiar notion a careful man was allowed, and I didn't expect to ever think about it again. It was most of a year before the woods went quiet on me. I've tried a lot of times to describe what that first night was like to somebody who wasn't there, and I've never done it good enough. So I'll just tell it the way I remember, and you'll have to fill in the rest yourself. It was fall. October, I believe, though I'll be honest and say I'm not certain of the month. It was a long time ago, and one fall run is a great deal like another. The leaves were down, or mostly down. I know that because I remember the wet of them, the way a mule's feet and a wagon wheel go quiet on a road that's deep in wet leaves. And I remember thinking that was a good thing, a quiet wagon, one less sound to give me away. I was on the long stretch that ran below the main ridge, a stretch I'd been over I don't know how many times. There's a place up there where the road bends around the shoulder of a knob, and the trees come right down close on both sides. Old growth on the upper side, hemlock and oak, and a steep drop on the lower side down into a laurel hell you couldn't have walked through with a knife. I knew that bend. I could have driven it asleep. I had driven it about asleep more than once on the back end of a long night. And it was a loud night. That part matters. The mountains are not quiet at night, not in fall, not ever. There's bugs the whole season through till a hard frost kills them. There's the little tree frogs. There's the creek, always the creek somewhere, and the wind moving the tops of the trees even when you can't feel it down on the road. And your own wagon, the wheels and the axle and the jars in their straw shifting and ticking against each other. An owl now and then, something small running off through the leaves. It is a steady, busy, living sound, the nighttime woods, and you stop hearing it the same way you stop hearing your own breath. It's just the floor that everything else stands on. I came around the shoulder of that knob, and the floor went out from under it. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part I never can get across right. It wasn't like a door slamming. It was more like the sound was being taken away a layer at a time, fast, but not all at once. And the first thing I noticed was that I noticed anything at all, if that makes sense to you. I noticed the quiet the way you'd notice a stare that wasn't there in the dark. A wrongness that your body knows before your head does. The bugs were the first to go. Then the little frogs. Then I couldn't hear the creek anymore, and the creek was right down there, 40 feet down that bank. It had no business going quiet. Water doesn't go quiet. And then there wasn't any wind in the trees, and there wasn't anything at all. I stopped the wagon. I don't think I decided to. I think my hands did it. And I sat there in it. What that quiet was like, the closest I've ever come to saying it is this. It was not like the woods had gone silent. It was like the woods had been covered, like something had been laid down over the top of all of it, over me and the wagon and the mule and the road and the trees, the way you'd lay a heavy quilt over a bird cage to settle the bird. And under that quilt, the sound wasn't gone so much as it was being held, pressed down. I could feel it on my ears, an actual pressure, the way your ears feel when you go up a grade too fast, and the dark seemed to come in closer with it. The lantern was burning the same as ever, but the light off it didn't seem to reach as far as it had a minute before. The mule knew. I'll tell you that. People will tell you an animal can't know a thing like that, and those are people who never watched a mule in it. My mule had stopped without me touching the lines, same as the wagon, and she was standing dead still with her head up and her ears back flat against her skull, not moving, not blowing, not shifting her feet. A mule shifts her feet. A mule is never that still. She was standing there like a thing carved out of wood, and her not moving frightened me worse than anything I could have heard. And here's where Burl's rule came up out of wherever I'd buried it. And I want to be truthful with you about this part too, because it would make a better story if I said I followed it straight off. I didn't. I sat there. I sat there in that pressed down dark, and I thought, this is the thing the old man meant. And right behind that thought came another one, the young man's thought, the one that had kept me from taking him serious in the first place. And that thought said, it's just weather. It's a still night and a low cloud, and your own mind making more of it than it is. Wait it out. You wait it out, and the bugs start up again, and you've got a wagon full of money and a long way still to go, and you have not lost a thing. I don't know how long I sat there arguing with myself. It felt like a long while. It was probably not even a minute, and a minute was the number Burl gave me, and I have thought about that since, that I very near sat there past the minute on the strength of telling myself it was weather. What got me moving was the mule. She made a sound, not a loud one. A mule that's scared will bawl, or blow hard through her nose, or stamp, and she did none of that, because none of that was possible under the quilt. The quiet wouldn't allow it. What she did was she made a sound down low in her chest, a sound I had never heard a mule make and have never heard one make since. A kind of a low, broken humming, like she was trying to cry out, and the quiet was holding the cry down in her throat, and only that much of it could get past. And she did it with her whole body shaking. I got down off that wagon. I didn't decide to, the same as I hadn't decided to stop it. I got down and I went to her, and my own boots on the wet leaves made no sound. None. I was watching them come down on the leaves, and there was nothing, and I got her unhitched. My hands were shaking and the buckles were wet, and it took me a great deal longer than it should have. And the whole time I had the feeling, I'll just say it plain, I had the feeling that I was being watched do it. Not from any place I could have pointed to, from every place, from the quiet itself. Like the quiet had a grain to it the way wood has a grain, and the grain was all turned toward me. I got her loose, and I took the lantern, and I left the wagon sitting in the bend with every jar in it, and I led that mule down off the mountain, and I did not run, because I had the strongest feeling a man ever had that running was the one thing I had better not do. That whatever it was, the running would be the thing that turned its head. So I walked. I walked down that grade, leading a shaking mule through a silence that lay on me like a hand, and it went on and on, far longer than a minute, far longer than ought to be possible. And then somewhere down low, near the bottom, where the road came out of the steep timber and started to flatten toward the river bottoms, it let go. It didn't fade. It let go. All at once, the way a held breath lets go. The bugs were there, and the creek was there. The whole living floor of it all came back between one step and the next, so sudden and so loud after that quiet that I stopped dead in the road and just stood there with my heart going like a hammer, listening to the plain, ordinary noise of the world like it was the finest music I ever heard. I did not go back for the wagon. Not the next day, not ever. Burl asked me about it a few days on, asked it careful, and I told him. And he nodded once, and he didn't say I told you so, and he didn't say anything else about it at all, and that was somehow the worst part. That a thing like that could happen to a man, and the only person he could tell would just nod, like you'd nod at a fellow who said it had come on to rain. After that night I was a believer, and I want to walk you through what being a believer was like, because it's a stranger thing than you'd think, and it's most of what I have to tell. It didn't make me quit. You'd think it would have. I've had years to wonder why it didn't, and the best I can say is that the work was the work, and a man does the work that's in front of him, and the money was real, and my family ate on it, and the quiet, after all, had let me go. That was how I came to think of it. It had let me go. I had followed Burl's rule, and the rule had carried me out, and so the rule worked, and a thing that works is a thing you can live alongside. You can be afraid of the river and still cross the river every day, as long as you know where the ford is. The rule was my ford. That's how I had it figured. So I kept running, and I started to learn the shape of the thing, the way a man learns weather. Because it wasn't every night, nowhere near. Most nights were just nights. I'd go weeks, a month even, and the woods would be loud and ordinary, and the work would be nothing but hard. And then there'd come a night when it happened, and I started, over that next year or two, to be able to feel it coming on a little. Not much. A little. There'd be a kind of a thinness to the air before it, a waiting. The way the light gets a certain color before a bad storm, before there's any cloud you can point at. The old people called it a weather breeder, a day too fine, too still. And you'd look at a day like that, and know. It got to where I had a few minutes of that thinness before the quiet would come, sometimes. And I used those minutes. If I felt it, I'd start looking for a wide place in the road, a place I could get the mule turned, a place that wasn't that close-grown bend. And I talked to other runners about it. Some. You had to be careful how you did it. There was a way you could find out if a man knew. You didn't ask him straight. You'd be talking, the two of you, the way men talk when they've got a thing in common, and you'd let it come around to the roots, and you'd say something like, "That long stretch under the main ridge, I don't much care for it of a still night." And you'd watch his face. And a man who didn't know would say, "Still nights are the easy ones. What's wrong with a still night?" And you'd know he didn't know, and you'd let it go and talk of something else. But a man who knew, his face would do a thing. It would close, like a hand closing, and he wouldn't meet your eye. He'd find something to look at off to the side, and he'd say something short, something like, "No, nor do I." And then he would change what you were talking about, quick. He'd change it quick, the way Burl had got up off the porch. That was the thing I noticed that year, and it sat wrong with me, and it has sat wrong with me ever since. The men who'd been hurt by it, or near it, the men who knew, they would not talk about it. Not wouldn't exactly. It was more like they couldn't, like there was a wall in them, and the words wouldn't go over it. And I came to understand that I had got like that myself. I have just now told you more about those nights, sitting here, than I told any living soul in the 40 years I had to tell it. The knowing builds a wall in you. I don't know any other way to say it. The thing makes you quiet about itself. And I have wondered, more than I like, whether that's a thing that just happens to a man, or whether that's a thing the quiet does to him on purpose, so that nobody can ever be properly warned, so it can keep coming, cove to cove, one runner at a time, the way it always had. I asked Burl one more time. The last fall he was strong enough to sit out on the porch. I asked him plain. I said, "Burl, the quiet, the still nights, what is it? What's out there?" And he was a long time answering, and when he didn't answer that. He answered a different question, one I hadn't asked, and I've turned what he said over so many thousands of times that I can give it to you near word for word. He said, "The rule says a minute." He said, "You ever wonder where the minute come from?" And I said, "No, I never had." And he said, "Well," he said, "it wasn't measured. Nobody stood out there with a watch. The minute is just about how long the last few that lived had been in it before they got themselves out. Somebody got out, and he'd been in it a minute, near enough, and he told it, and the next fellow told it the same, and it come down to us a minute. He said, 'You understand what I'm telling you. The minute ain't how long you've got. The minute is just the longest anybody stood in it and still walked home to say so.' I did understand him. I understood him sitting there on that porch, and it went through me like cold water. I had been carrying that rule for 2 years like a shield. Leave inside the minute and you're safe. And Burl had just set the shield down in front of me and showed me it was no shield at all. It was a gravestone. It was the high water mark of every man it hadn't kept. The minute didn't measure my safety. It measured other men's luck, and luck is a thing that has already, by the time you hear about it, run out for somebody. Burl died that winter, in his bed, which I was glad of, and he is one of the few men I knew in that trade that I can say that of. I'm going to tell you now about the part where the rule stopped fitting, and I have to tell it slower, because this is the part I've never told, and the part I least like to. It came on gradual, the way the quiet itself came on gradual, a layer at a time, so that no single night could you have stood up and said, "There, that's different. That's the night it changed." It was only looking back after that I could lay the nights in a row and see the shape of it. And the shape of it was this. The rule was coming loose. Everything Burl had handed me, everything the runners before him had handed down, all of it was built on the quiet behaving a certain way. And across that last year or two of my running, the quiet stopped behaving that way. The first thing was the time, the minute. I told you I'd got to where I could feel the thinness come on ahead of it and use it. That stopped working right. There came a night on the low stretch, not even a bad piece of road, when I felt the thinness come on, and I would have sworn, a few minutes to work with, and I had not got the mule but half turned before the quiet came down with no thinness left to it at all, came down like the lid of a box. There were no minutes. There was barely the time to drop the lines and run, and I did run that night, rule or no rule, ran and left the load, and the quiet came down the road after me a good way before it let go, and I have always believed that night that it let me go on purpose, that it could have kept me and chose not to, the way a cat will let a thing run. Then the places started to be wrong. I'll give you the one I'm surest of, and not the ones I might be remembering wrong. There was a creek crossing on the middle route, a little ford, ankle deep, with a split rock on the far side of it. A big rock that had a clean split down the middle of it, like somebody had taken a wedge to it. And that rock had been my mark on that route for years. You came down to the split rock and you knew you had 2 miles of easy grade left, and then the river. I had crossed at that rock hundreds of times. One night I came down to it and the rock was on the wrong side of the creek. I want to be careful here. I have asked myself every hard question about this that you are asking yourself right now. Was I tired? Yes, I was tired. A runner is always tired. Was it dark? It was dark. It was always dark, that was the work. Could I have come at the ford from a different angle and got turned around? I have thought about that one the most, and I will tell you that I could not have, that there was only the one way the road came down to that ford, and I had come down it the same as 1,000 times, and the split rock that had been on the far bank my whole life was on the near bank, on my side, the creek running behind it instead of in front of it, and the quiet was on me when I saw it. The quiet was on me, that's the thing. It was a still night, and I stood there at that ford in the pressed down dark looking at a rock that had moved across a creek, and I did the only thing there was to do, which was leave the load and lead the mule home, and I did not cross that creek, and I never used that route again. After that, the wrongness came regular on the still nights, not every one, but enough. A road would run longer than it had any business running, a stretch I knew to be an hour just unrolling on ahead of the lantern, the same trees and the same grade, on, till I'd near lost my nerve, and then it would end ordinary in the ordinary place, like it had never stretched at all. I had left a load, a still night, the way the rule said, unhitched and walked out, and 3 nights on I was running a different route, miles from the first, miles, no road between the two of them that a wagon could take, and the quiet came down on me on that second route, and I went off the side of it to wait the quiet out in the laurel, the way I'd learned to, and there in the laurel, in the dark, with the quiet lying over everything, my hand came down on a wagon wheel. It was my wagon, the one I'd left 3 nights before and miles away. The jars were still in it. The straw was still packed around the jars. I knew the wagon the way you know your own hand, and it was my wagon, and it was sitting in a laurel hill on a mountain it had no way of having got to, and I was crouched down in the dark next to it, with the quiet pressing on my ears, and I did not wait for the quiet to lift that night. I left that mule. God forgive me, it was the only time I ever did it. I left the mule, and I went down that mountain through the laurel, on my hands and knees in the dark, and the mule I never saw again. And I have told myself for 40 years that a revenuer got her, or she broke a leg and somebody put her down, and I have never once believed it. And then there was Dewey. Dewey Pruitt was a young runner, younger than me. He'd have been 19 or 20, and he ran the routes over on the far side of the gap from mine. I didn't know him close. You didn't, mostly no other runners close. But I knew him to speak to, and I knew his people a little, and I knew he was good at the work. Steady, not a show-off. The kind of young fellow the old men would nod about and say he'd do. Dewey knew about the quiet. I'd had the talk with him, the careful talk, the roots and still nights talk, and I'd watched his face close up like a hand, so I knew he knew, and that was a strange, small comfort to me, that there was one other man near my own age who carried the same wall inside him that I did. And then one fall, Dewey didn't come off the mountain. The how of it is the thing I most need you to hear. I did not learn it from anybody telling me. Nobody came and said, Dewey Pruitt is lost. What happened was that I noticed across a few weeks that Dewey's name had stopped being said. That's all. He had been a name that came up, the way names do. This fellow saw him. That fellow ran a load with him. And then there was a stretch where I realized I had not heard the name Dewey Pruitt in some time, and I started, careful, the way you learn to be careful, to listen for it. And it was not there. It had been lifted clean out of the talk. And when I once, just once, said it myself, said it to two men I trusted as much as I trusted anybody, said, whatever come of young Dewey Pruitt, the two of them did the thing. The face closing, the eyes going off to the side. And one of them, after a while, said, he quit the running, I believe. He moved off, down toward Charlotte, I believe. And the other one nodded, looking at the floor, and the talk moved on. He didn't move off toward Charlotte. I want to be plain that I do not know what happened to Dewey Pruitt, but I knew those two men, and I knew the sound of a true thing, and the sound of a thing a man says, so he won't have to say a worse one. And what they said about Charlotte was the second kind. They knew. Whatever there was to know, they knew it. And they had folded it up small and put it away, the way you'd fold away a dead child's clothes. And the folding away was so complete and so quick and so shared between them, like a thing the whole community had agreed on without ever holding a meeting, that I understood I was looking at something that had been done many times before. That this was the practice. That when the mountain took a runner, the runner's name went quiet, and the quiet over the name was the same quiet that was over the woods, and I had been hearing that second kind of quiet my whole life, and calling it grief, or calling it mountain people keeping to themselves, and it was neither one. It was the same thing. It had just come down off the ridge and got into the people. That was the night I came, the closest I ever came to quitting. The night I understood about Dewey. I sat up till morning and I had it settled in my mind that I was done, that no money was worth it, and I want you to know that I meant it. And then morning came, and the day was ordinary, and the children needed shoes, and there is no end to the way a man can talk himself back toward a mountain. I told myself the thing I had told myself the first night, in the bend, sitting in the quiet. I told myself the rule had always carried me out. I had been in it more times than near any man living, and the rule had carried me out every time. And so I would keep the rule, keep it perfect, keep it the way Burl gave it to me, leave the load, and lead the mule and never run, and the rule would carry me out the way it always had. But I knew, even as I told myself that, I knew what Burl had told me on the porch. The minute was a gravestone. The rule was not a shield. It had never been a shield. It was just a list of how far the lucky ones had got. I went back to the running. I want you to know that I went back knowing. I'll tell you about the last night now. I had it in my mind, that fall, that I would do one more good season and then I'd be done. And I had even said as much out loud to my wife, which I almost never did, talked to her about the work, and her not answering me was its own kind of answer. So I was running careful. I was running like a man who has something to lose and has just lately let himself remember it. It was December, cold. There'd been a skift of snow earlier in the week, and it had mostly gone, but it was still down in the shadowed places, in the print of every hoof and wheel, so the dark woods had this faint broken paleness all through them, and I remember being glad of it because it meant a little more to see by. I was on the high route, the long one, because the high ford was the safe ford, and I'd got past taking the low one for anything. I had a good load and a good mule, a different mule, a young John mule, sound and willing, and the night when I started up was a loud night. Ordinary, cold and loud and ordinary, the creek loud with the snow melt, and I want you to hold on to that it started ordinary because I had got to where I trusted the thinness, the weather breeder feeling, to give me my warning, and that last night, it gave me nothing. None. There was no thinness. There was no waiting in the air. The night was loud and cold and honest right up until the moment it was not. The quiet came down on the high route about halfway up, on a piece of road I had no fear of, a wide piece, easy, the kind of place I'd have picked to be in if I'd had the picking. And it came down all at once, not a layer at a time. There was no creek then bugs then wind to it. It came down whole and complete and instant, like a lid coming down on a box, and I had not heard it come like that before, ever. And I knew, the way the mule knew, the way my own hands knew before my head had caught up. I knew this was a different thing than I had been in before. I did everything right. I want that said, because it matters to the rest of it, and because it is the only thing about that night I am still allowed to be proud of. I did not freeze. I did not argue with myself about weather. I was 40 years past that. I dropped the lines and I was down off the wagon before the quiet had finished settling, and I got to the mule's head, and I had him unhitched in less time than I'd ever done it, my cold hands just doing the work without me. And I took the lantern, and I started down, walking, not running, leading him off the high route and down toward the river and home, exactly the way Burl had taught me, exactly the way the rule said, inside the minute, well inside the minute, perfect. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the quiet came with me. Every time in 20 years, the quiet had been a place. It lay over a stretch of the mountain, and you got yourself out of that stretch, and you came back into the loud, ordinary world, and the quiet stayed up there where it lived. That was the whole shape of the thing. That was what made the rule a rule. You could leave it because it was a place, and places can be left. That last night I walked down off the high route, and the quiet walked down with me. I came down out of the easy stretch, and the quiet was still on me. I came down past the spring branch and past the burnt snag in the right order, the places all in their right order, and the quiet was still on me. I came down the long grade where the road runs out of the timber and starts to flatten. The place, the very place, where on that first night 20 years before the quiet had let go of me all at once and given me back the world. I came down to that place and I stopped, and I stood there in the road like a man at a doorway, and I waited for it to let go. And it did not let go. I walked out of the timber and into the river bottoms with the quiet lying over me like a quilt, and I could see ahead and below the cove where the people lived, where my own people were, and I could see in the cold and the dark the few small lights of it, a window here, a window there, the ordinary lights of ordinary people, and between me and those lights there should have been the whole loud living sound of the bottom land, the river and the bare trees and the dogs. There were always dogs, and there was none of it. The quiet had come down off the mountain, and it had come into the cove ahead of me, or it had come into the cove with me, and I stood on the road above my own home in a silence that had never in 20 years left the high ground, and I watched the small lights of the houses, and the quiet lay over the houses the same as it lay over me. I did not go down to the house. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I had walked all that way toward those lights, and toward my wife, and toward my children asleep in that house, and I stood on the road above them, and I could not make myself carry the quiet down into that cove and in at that door. I had the strongest feeling that a man has ever had, that if I carried it in, it would stay. That it would learn the house the way it had learned the road. So I stood up there on the cold road above my own sleeping family for what I have no way to measure, an hour, 2, with the lantern guttering low, and I waited. And somewhere in the blackest dead middle of that night, the quiet let go of the cove, all at once, the river, and the dogs and the wind all coming back. And only then, when the world below me was loud and ordinary again, did I walk down and go in and lie down beside my wife, who I did not wake and who I never told, not that night, and not in all the years after. I never ran another load. That was the end of it for me. I had said I'd do one more season, and I did not even finish the one I was in. I sold the mule, and I let the roots go to whatever younger man wanted them. And I have wondered about that too in the years since, whether passing the roots on was passing the thing on, and I have decided that I do not want to know. But I told you at the start that I had a worse thing to tell, and I have not told it yet, and I am going to tell it now, and then I'll be done. I quit the mountain, but the mountain, it turned out, had not quit me. It started slow the years after. I'd be somewhere ordinary, the church, the store, a field in the daylight with the sun on it, and there would come over me, for just a second, the thinness, the weather breeder feeling, the waiting in the air, and my whole body would go cold and ready before my mind had a say in it, and then it would pass, and it would be nothing, just a still moment in an ordinary day, and I'd tell myself it was an old man's nerves. A trade like that one marks a man. Of course it leaves him jumpy. That's all it was. That's what I told myself. But it got plainer as I got older, and I am an old man now, and I will tell you how it is with me now, and you can make of it what you want. I can feel it coming. That is the thing. Not the thinness, not a warning, not a few minutes' grace the way I used to get on the roots. I mean the quiet itself. I can feel the quiet itself the very instant it begins, anywhere, in this house, in my own chair by my own fire, the instant it starts to come down. I know it. I know it before the first bug stops, before the fire stops popping, before anything a body could point to has changed. There's an instant, the smallest part of a second, when the world is still loud and ordinary to every other soul in the room, and I already know I have already gone cold and still, because I can feel it the way you'd feel a hand laid on the back of your neck. Burl's rule said a minute. The minute, he told me, was the longest a lucky man had ever stood in it. I have got past needing the minute. I do not need the minute or any part of it. I know the quiet in the instant it is born, before it has a sound, or before it has the taking away of sound, and I have come to understand, slow over a long time, the way I have understood everything else in this story too late to be any use, what that means. It means I was not, those last years on the mountain, only a man it kept coming to. Somewhere in 20 years of standing in it, 20 years of being covered over by it and pressed down by it and let go again, it did something to me. It tuned me. The way you'd tune a fiddle string, tighten it till it answers. It made me into a thing that answers. It comes now, and I ring. That is the only word I have for it. It comes and I ring, and I have spent a long time being afraid of what it means that a thing like that would want an instrument, and would carry one down off a mountain, and set it up in a house in a cove to keep, against some use it has not shown me yet. It comes here. I will tell you that, and then I will stop. It comes here, to this house, not often, a few times a year, in the deep of the night mostly, and I feel it begin, and I lie there in the bed I have slept in for 50 years, next to a wife who is gone now, in a house gone quiet under that other quilt of quiet, and there is nothing for me to do. That is the part I would take back if I could take back any of it. On the mountain there was always the thing to do. There was the rule. Drop the lines, loose the mule, leave the load, walk, don't run. There was a load to leave. The rule worked because there was always something I could give it, something I could set down in the dark and walk away from. And it would take the whiskey, I have come to believe. It would take the load the way you'd pay a toll and let the man go on. But I have nothing left to leave it. The mule is 50 years dead. There is no load. There is no wagon and no route and no whiskey and no road down off anywhere. There is just an old man in a bed in the dark, and the quiet coming down, and the old man ringing like a struck string, and the two of them lying there together waiting to see, after all this time, which one of them the other one has finally come for. It is a still night tonight. I need you to know that. I have felt the thinness in it since sundown. That is why I have told you all of this, finally, after carrying it quiet for 60 years, because I have got to where I think it is close. And I have come to believe a man ought not to take a thing like this all the way down into the ground with him, without once setting it out where another soul can hear it. If the woods go quiet where you are, all the way quiet, longer than a minute, you leave whatever you are carrying and you go. Don't wait to see. Don't tell yourself it's the weather. And if you ever get to where you don't need the minute anymore, where you can feel it start before there's anything to feel, then I am sorry. Then it is already too late, and it was already too late a long time before you knew. And there is nothing in Burl's rule or in mine or in anybody's that will be any good to you at all. Listen. There it goes. The creek's gone. You hear that? The creek's gone quiet, and the fire and the old clock on the shelf there has gone quiet. And I knew it a half a breath before any of it stopped, the way I always do now, the way I will until it finishes whatever this long, slow tuning of me was for. It's come down off the mountain again. It's in the